Hello everyone, I'm Kevin Nelson. Here's a look at what's going on this week in the news. We begin with news from around the world. Nelson Mandela, the first black president of South Africa, has died at the age of 95. Mandela led the struggle to replace South Africa's apartheid regime, spending 27 years in prison for his outspokenness. He was eventually released and became president in 1994. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. He retired from public life at the age of 85. In 2009, the U.S. and other UN member states created Nelson Mandela International Day. Every July 18th, people around the world take up Mandela's call for citizens to take responsibility to change the world into a better place by donating 67 minutes of their time to helping others, 1 minute for each year of Mandela's struggle against white minority rule. In news now from the Vatican, Cardinal Sean O'Malley of Boston, a member of the Pope's Advisory Council of Cardinals, announced December 5th at a press conference that the Pope had accepted a proposal to set up a special commission on the sexual abuse of children, which will advise him on ways to prevent abuse and provide pastoral care for victims and their families. The Cardinal is one of the 8 members of the Pope's International Council of Cardinals who have been meeting at the Vatican from December 3rd through the 5th. The Cardinal said the new commission would continue the work of Pope Benedict XVI against clerical sex abuse, and that among its tasks would be to study the present programs in place for the protection of children and to come up with suggestions for new initiatives by the Vatican in collaboration with national bishops' conferences and religious orders around the world. Also announced December 5th at the Vatican, Pope Francis will be holding a consistory or consultation with the entire College of Cardinals February 20th through the 21st at the Vatican. The meeting will precede the celebration of the February 22nd Feast of the Chair of St. Peter, which is when Pope Francis will create new cardinals. The Pope and the newly expanded College of Cardinals will celebrate Mass February 23rd. Pope Francis has yet to announce the names of the new cardinals. More news now from the Vatican. During the general audience this past week, Pope Francis focused his catechesis on the resurrection of the body. Rome Reports has more from St. Peter's Square.
During his catechesis, the Pope talked about the resurrection. He explained that even though it's hard to understand, the resurrection explains people's yearning for eternal life. It's a seed, said the Pope, that God instilled in humanity.
Ma questa non è una bugia, eh? Questo è vero. Noi crediamo che Gesù è risorto, che Gesù è vivo in questo momento. Ma voi credete che Gesù sta vivo, che è vivo? Ah, non credete, eh? Credete o non credete? E se Gesù è vivo, voi pensate che Gesù ci lascerà morire e mai risuscitare a noi? No! Lui ci aspetta e perché Lui è risorto, la forza della sua risurrezione ci risusciterà a tutti noi.
At the end of his general audience this past week, Pope Francis called on Catholics worldwide to pray for 5 Orthodox nuns who were kidnapped in Syria and for all people who have been abducted during the conflict there. In news from around the country, at a congressional hearing this past week, Sean Callahan, Chief Operating Officer of Catholic Relief Services, told a panel that the rebuilding in typhoon-ravaged regions of the Philippines could take up to 5 years. Callahan urged congressional representatives to commit funding for the long term so that progress can continue after the disaster is no longer in the headlines. Callahan said 13 million people were affected by Super Typhoon Haiyan and more than 5,600 lives had been lost. And finally in the news, Caritas Internationalis, the Vatican-based Federation of Catholic Charities, is launching a global wave of prayer and action against hunger, which will begin at noon December 10th on the South Pacific island of Samoa and head west across the world's time zones. Pope Francis will offer his blessing and support for the One Human Family, Food for All campaign in a 5-minute video message being released on the eve of the global launch. According to the Caritas website, nearly 1 billion people, or about 1 in 8 people, experienced chronic hunger or undernourishment during 2010 through 2012. Caritas is urging Catholics to take a few moments at noon on December 10th to join the world in praying against hunger, as well as engage in long-term action through raising awareness, advocacy, charitable work, or other efforts supporting food security. Well, that is all the information we have for you this time. I'm Kevin Nelson. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on Catholic news throughout the week with Catholic Newsbreak right here on the Catholic TV Network.